All right, Friday morning. Welcome to the Krug Show. Chase Sr. is in the house. We got a lot to get to. We've got stuff on Aiyuk, stuff on Lenoir, stuff on Cowherd, a lot of stuff on the Niners. Let's go. We got a lot to get to and no time to get to it, so let's go right here. Off and running on a Friday. It's the Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. And they're awesome. Check them out. You're going to love it. You're going to love the brisket. You're going to love the brisket chili. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Tell them that Krug sent you. And this show is also sponsored by LearnKey Upskill Academy, an online learning platform designed to get you job ready in 6 months or less. They offer over 30 certification programs to help you take that next step in your professional career. You could be interested in cybersecurity, marketing. It could be any number of fields. They've been in business for 37 years. They've helped over 200,000 students. They place about 100 a month in well-paying jobs. So LearnKey Upskill Academy. Thanks to them for being proud sponsors of the Krug Show. All right, we're back in the saddle here on a Friday. We missed last week because I was in Connecticut. Chase Sr. is back with us. Chase, good to see you, man. How are you?
You as well. How's the vacay experiencing the Northeast?
Oh, man, it was amazing. It was amazing. Now, I will say this. The only thing that I didn't love about the Northeast is that there's a lot more bugs at the beach there than we have here. Like, there's no bugs in California. I mean, we're a bugless society here, and I was constantly, scratching here and itching my forearms, itching my hands, my ankles, my calves, you name it. I just got bit and bit and bit. And the worst thing is I could never see these little bugs that were biting me, in the Bay Area, you might get a mosquito and you see that mosquito. You didn't see these bugs. So, frustrating, but it was a great time. Got a great time at the beach. Got a chance to go to New York. Took Kev to New York. The rest of the family, it was great. It was a great time. Really good time. But I'm back in it talking Niners, and we're out, of course, there's never a shortage of things to talk about. And we get rolling this morning with this story off TMZ, which is Niners corner Deommodore Lenoir arrested in Los Angeles. TMZ reporting. I'll just read this to you guys. Niners cornerback Deommodore Lenoir arrested in Los Angeles on Thursday. TMZ Sports has learned. Lenoir was arrested by L.A. police at about 5:30 p.m. He was booked for resisting a peace officer a few hours later. Law enforcement sources tell TMZ that the cops approached Lenoir and a man named Marcus Cunningham when they observed vehicles double parked and blocking traffic. We're told the cops suspected criminal activity. They noticed a gun in Cunningham's car. During the interaction, TMZ was told that Cunningham threw Lenoir his car keys, and when officers asked the Niners corner to hand them over, he did not. So he was arrested on one count of resisting a peace officer. He was released this morning and is scheduled to appear in court next month. Cunningham was also arrested for possession of a concealed firearm in a vehicle. All right, so that's basically it. The Niners, of course, drafted Lenoir in the 5th round in the 2021 draft. He's one of their best players. They signed him to a 5-year, $92 million extension last offseason. These are all the details that we have, at least at this point in this story. Chase, your thoughts on Deommodore Lenoir, one of the 49ers leaders, being caught in an entanglement with the law today?
Obviously, anytime you're running a football operation, anytime you're running a business and one of your players, one of your employees is involved in a police altercation like this and an arrest happens, it's never ideal. I would say that as far as what this would rank on the scale of a charge or criminal activity, or at least the severity of it, it's extremely low. My best guess is that Lenoir and his buddy were hanging out. Some people saw that they were hanging out. Maybe they were slightly blocking traffic. police got called and they arrived to the scene. And I think probably the biggest trigger moment, no pun intended, for the authorities was seeing that there was a gun in this guy, Marcus Cunningham's car. And obviously, anytime that happens, that can make police officers react in a certain way. And to the sounds of it, Lenoir's buddy threw him his keys. Lenoir, probably trying to stand up for his friend, elected to not give the officers the keys. And then the police officers were like, all right, if you're not going to cooperate, we're going to arrest you. And this happened 5:30 Pacific on Thursday. Lenoir was released on Friday morning. And so he had to spend the night in jail. That's never a spot where you want to rest your head. Lenoir, everybody raves about his character. George Kittle was on stage with him a couple of weeks ago saying, Deommodore Lenoir is a leader of our football team. He has emerged into one of our best players. Robert Saleh has said that about him. I thought last year he played at a Pro Bowl, all-pro type of level. He has been very outspoken as far as his confidence in himself as a football player, but also willing to talk smack with rivals and other wide receivers. I love the way that he carries himself. This doesn't get me concerned about his character. I imagine these charges are going to get dropped, or at least they're going to be very minimal charges. Prior to me covering the Niners full-time and hopping back into sports broadcasting, I was a news reporter. And so when situations like this arise, I think the headline is a little bit worse than the actual situation. I'm thankful that it didn't result in anything more severe, but I'm not really worried about Lenoir's long-term status with the Niners. I imagine the organization has been notified and they can flush this and move on.
Yeah, I mean, you never want to see your guys, your players arrested and that kind of thing, and it doesn't show well for the organization publicly that this is out there in the public discussion. I'm sure it's something the Niners are not particularly pleased about, but in the grand scheme of things, it seems like a gigantic nothing burger. I mean, that's what it seems like to me. I mean, at most, it's going to be a misdemeanor. It doesn't sound like it was anything too serious. I don't think it changes anything about Lenoir and his status with the team. Now, I will say this, the 49ers are leaning heavily on Deommodore Lenoir.
Yeah.
So, and this is kind of one area where I kind of think they're a little bit exposed. I'm going to share the screen because the other Niner corner story that is out there from Coach Yak is that Coach Yak showed this video today of Upton Stout doing some workouts, and he looks pretty damn good here, actually.
The footwork's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the footwork's really good. Now, he's a tiny little guy, but he's tough as heck. But, I mean, this is an area where, I mean, if you said, give me a list of the 49ers that the Niners can ill afford to lose. Okay, well, it's Brock Purdy, it's Trent Williams, it's Colton McKivitz, and then it's Deommodore Lenoir, Upton Stout, and Renardo Green.
I would throw Fred Warner and Nick Bosa in there as well.
I would say maybe even more Bosa than Warner, just because you don't have a lot of backups there. You do have some backup linebackers. But yeah, I mean, those guys as well. But, I mean, the 49ers do not have backup contingency plans on the corner. I mean, if Deommodore Lenoir doesn't play well and Renardo Green doesn't play well and Upton Stout doesn't play well, it's going to be really difficult for the 49ers to make the playoffs. So, yeah. I mean, most teams are going to keep 6 corners. Those are their top 3. There's a major drop-off from their top 3 to Darrell Luter, Trey Brown, Saron Neal, whoever else is 3, 4, 5, 6 on their depth chart. So, obviously, it's a big, they can't lose Lenoir, but then they also are banking on Upton Stout, which is why some of us have thrown out, hey, how about Jalen Ramsey? Because the Niners do have a bunch of cap room, and they have a somewhat severe need on the corner. Well, how do you see their backup corners besides their top 3 guys? How concerned are you about cornerback 4, 5, 6?
I'm worried about the cornerback depth, and a big reason for that is that the Niners are very unproven there. Trey Brown was a former 4th-round pick by the Seattle Seahawks out of Oklahoma, and he had 30 pass breakups and 100 tackles throughout his Oklahoma career, but he went to Seattle. They were very high on him in the pre-draft process, and he was banged up a lot. He didn't play all that well. He didn't play that much his first couple of years, and then the last couple of years, primarily a special teams player who occasionally saw the field getting corner snaps. He runs 4.4, but he's a little bit smaller. I know he intercepted Brock Purdy in the spring, and he can play inside, outside. He's never played on the inside before in his career, but I think that positional versatility is key for him. But he's an unknown commodity. I really like the selection of Upton Stout. People can rip him for being a little bit small. He doesn't play like it, though. And people said the same thing about Deommodore Lenoir when he was a 5th-round pick out of Oregon. But it's really how you carry yourself. It's your willingness to get it out of the mud and be physical and mix it up and not show any fear on the field. Upton Stout has that type of Deommodore Lenoir mentality that Dre Greenlaw and Azeez Al-Shire also possess. They play with a lot of fire. They play with a lot of swagger. They play with a lot of physicality. Upton Stout is a guy who ran 4.4 in the pre-draft, has ball skills. He makes plays on the rock, provides the Niners with a lot of sticky coverage, but he's a rookie. And the San Francisco defense as a whole going to be relying on a lot of rookies to be impactful. And you make a fantastic point. You know, if Deommodore Lenoir goes down, you really start to have concerns at that cornerback position, because as currently constructed, you'd have Trey Brown out there. You'd have Darrell Luter Jr. out there. All we know about him is that he's long, runs well, but he's been banged up. He's barely seen the field. Renardo Green struggled a little bit in the spring, but I thought he played excellent in the 7 starts that he had last year as a rookie. And his college tape, he had great reps against Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, the 2 top wide receivers in the game. That translated last year. But the Niners can't afford for him to have a sophomore slump. And so this news with Lenoir, it's going to be a misdemeanor. Hopefully the charges outright just get dropped, but he is set to appear in court in a month. The Niners are supposed to get training camp started in less than a month. And so hopefully this doesn't take him away from being in Santa Clara, having to go back down to LA. I don't worry about the criminal offense, but you never want to see this with one of your players. But you're totally right. Corner depth is a concern, and that's why we've been talking about the likes of Jalen Ramsey. Asante Samuel Jr. is still out there. He played 4 games last year with a neck injury and a stinger. He got a neck surgery this offseason, but he's a former 2nd-round pick who's had double-digit pass breakups in his first 3 years prior to barely playing last year. If you still have concerns at that corner spot, he has a medical checkup from that neck surgery in July. Do you explore that type of avenue?
I'll tell you what I'm concerned about. I thought the last 2 years, the Niners did a lousy job of paring down their roster at the cutdown, getting rid of good players and keeping not good players. 2 years ago, they kept Isaiah Oliver and they cut Deshaun Jameson. Last year, they kept Rock Ya-Sin and Isaac Yiadom. They cut Samuel Womack, only to watch Womack and Jameson outplay the guys that the Niners kept, and they kept them largely because of the financial commitment. And and it's all set up again for them to do the exact same thing this year. They have $2.5 million committed to Saran Neal. They have $500,000 committed to Trey Brown, and yet there's a very good chance that Jacob Robinson or Derek Canteen, 2 undrafted rookies who had good interception totals in college, could outperform those guys this summer. But if the Niners are just going to protect, try to save face with the owner for the 3rd straight year, it's not a real competition. And Saran Neal is going to be on the roster because they're paying him $2.25, and Trey Brown's going to be on the roster because they're paying him $500,000. But I'll say this: if Jacob Robinson or Canteen or Luter get cut and they outplay those guys, I'm going to scream bloody murder about it. I mean, for at least for a couple days, because that you can't do that. You can't keep making these mistakes at the cutdown, especially at a position like corner where The Niners seem to be the only team that doesn't seem like they fully grasp the need for corners as far as how you have to go with the guys who are the best guys. They act like they can get a corner anytime, anywhere, and then they go with these guys that they invested free agent dollars in, and when those guys crap the bed, it's suddenly they have no alternatives because it's week 5, week 6. So they could not pick up Samuel Womack in week 6 last year. They could not pick up Deshaun Jameson in week 6 the year before. And I'm sure they would have liked to. So I don't want to see them cut. I really don't want to see Jacob Robinson or Canteen play well or Luter play well and get cut because they have special teams millions, tied up in other guys.
Yeah,
I think I'm really concerned about it because they've shown that they're free. Obviously, Jed makes a stink anytime they spend a penny of his money and that guy doesn't make the roster. They're not doing this for no reason. I'm sure the ownership has put pressure on them to not waste Jed's money. I'm sure they understand it's a bad look, but it's a worse look going with an inferior player for reasons beyond football.
Yeah, real quick though, just want to pass along some more news coming out on Lenoir.
Yeah.
So he was booked at 9:40 p.m. Thursday. He has a court date set in downtown LA on July 25th. The Niners start training camp July 22nd, with rookies reporting on July 15th. And so this could take him away from training camp. Also, the guy who he was with, Marcus Cunningham, he was arrested on a felony charge. He is yet to be released. And as we know, I think is California concealed carry state? Do you know?
I don't know.
Yeah. Either way, they have some pretty strict gun laws. And so that's not good for who Lenoir was with. And look, for everybody out there, like if police show up, just cooperate. We know that these things can escalate into a situation which can become something more than it needs to be. Just cooperate with authorities. But back to your point there, Larry.
What was Cunningham's felony, by the way? Did they say?
I think it's for that concealed firearm.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So Lenoir has been released. He has not been released. But back to your point, like you're so right. Last year, how do you keep Rock Ya-Sin, who's a veteran, who was a second-round pick out of Temple, but at that point you knew who he was, over Samuel Womack? Never take older players over young players with upside. And so, to your point, the Niners have a couple of good, solid young corners on this team. You got to see what you have from them in training camp and in the preseason. And if they outplay the veterans, keep some of these young players, because it also fits the plan and the timeline that we've seen this offseason. The Niners have drafted all of these young defensive players. They've brought in 18 rookies this offseason. It's not quite a rebuild, but it's a reset on the fly. Build your roster with some intriguing young foundational pieces and don't keep these old veterans. I hope it doesn't come to that situation, because I'm with you. I'll be screaming about it too.
And you know what? I mean, I would almost be willing to wager that Saron Neal is going to make this team no matter what, because they did guarantee him $2.25 million.
He's a good special teamer too.
He's a good special teamer, but he's not a fast guy. He's not
a good coverage guy.
Not a good coverage guy. And Robinson is a good coverage guy. And Canteen, Robinson and Canteen, I think combined had like 20 career college interceptions. So these guys have ball skills. All I'm saying is you got to make sure that you take the best corners regardless of cash. And Saron Neal, if I'll just say this, there's such a need for good corners in the NFL that any rookie corner that shows anything in the preseason will be claimed at the cutdown by any number of teams around the league, because it's a passing league and everybody needs corners and everybody needs good corners who are cheap. So if Jacob Robinson has a good preseason, he will not clear waivers. But Saron Neal, as a special teamer making 2.25, I think he might. So I just hope they don't make the same mistake 3 years in a row, but I kind of expect that they will. All right, let's share the screen on this one. Coach Yak has a picture of Aiyuk. Aiyuk's obviously vacationing in the Bahamas. There he is. Looks like he's got a nice little Airbnb there. Um,
Waterfront overlooking the Caribbean.
Yeah, I mean that looks like a pretty nice dream setup for Aiyuk, who's doesn't I don't see any braces on that knee or anything. Then he doesn't seem,
There's a good dive into the pool.
He bent the knee as he dove into the pool. So there you go.
There's a Deebo Samuel joke here for him being out of shape if this was a Deebo video at this point of the offseason.
Yeah, the water would have come out of the pool if it had been Deebo. Okay, so interesting. I'll share the screen on your tweet because you actually tweeted out about this. And here it is. Just in, a much-needed positive Brandon Aiyuk update from NFL insider Mike Garafolo. Mike Garafolo said this: I know folks are reading into Brandon Aiyuk's comments as he makes his way back from an ACL injury. I believe it's also an MCL and a meniscus.
Yeah.
My understanding is Brandon Aiyuk is in a really good space with the team. They've got to get him healthy and keep him focused. If they do, that's another add back to the mix with all this talent on the team. The positive, Aiyuk is in a good spot with the 49ers. What's interesting, that the 49ers need to keep him focused. There have been issues with that throughout Aiyuk's career. And this is, you put this out there, and you have a little video here beneath as well. Aiyuk, was like, they said I was going to be traded, and it's like, who? And then people are like, well, who's they? And then I kind of found it hard to believe that that he's really set off by, I don't know, us maybe, people on social media, people on YouTube. People just listening to him kind of voice discontent and putting two and two together and saying, it doesn't sound like he's happy. I knew this was coming. I knew this Garafolo report was coming because people were like, oh, Aiyuk's not happy with the team. And you knew the team's paying him. You knew there was going to be some retraction. Oh, no, he loves the team. The team loves him. Yeah, he loves the team and the team loves him, except, he didn't really say anything when Brock got his extension. Didn't know congratulations, Brock. So you kind of wonder about that relationship. Brock didn't go visit him. He did visit Kittle. Lynch didn't specifically said he wouldn't be traded when he was asked about it earlier. I mean, there are reasons that people in the media like myself, you, Grant, and others have noticed that there doesn't seem like everything's hunky-dory in Aiyuk land. But, of course, in the 11th hour, it's like, no, I love them. They love me. Everybody loves everybody. It's the big, bad media that's doing this all. Give me your take.
Yeah, so a couple of things. Also, guess who was at Brandon Aiyuk's wedding? Jaden Daniels. Guess who wasn't? Brock Purdy. And what cracks me up is that you and I and others, we've talked about this a lot because it's been a big talking point. It's been a big story. But the reason why we keep talking about it, even though people rip us and say, stop discussing this, I'm fatigued by the Aiyuk drama. He's the one who causes all of this by sending out cryptic message after cryptic message. Don't shoot the messenger. We're just passing along what Aiyuk is doing, which clearly is showing some type of malcontent from his personality point of view, but also he clearly isn't all that happy with the San Francisco 49ers. Now, Garafolo probably got this from a source inside the building. I'll take Garafolo for his word. I don't think he's just being a mouthpiece for the organization here. If it is true that Aiyuk is on a good page with the Niners and the Niners are cool with Aiyuk, that's great. You want these two to have a good marriage and a good partnership and flush whatever has happened. But somebody from the organization could have just fed this to Mike Garafolo and said, can you please throw this out there? Because you think about what has transpired this offseason. Kyle Shanahan at the NFL owners meetings. I'm as excited for this year as I've been in a really long time. I'm recharged. What has Brock Purdy said this offseason? There is a renewed sense of energy inside this building. The vibes are great. George Kittle, the vibes are back. We never want what happened last year to happen again. But everybody's been showing up. Trent Williams was at voluntary workouts. Nick Bosa was at voluntary workouts. All of the veterans were showing up at mandatory minicamp. They had 100% attendance. The vibes are back for San Francisco, yet the only negative vibe in the dark cloud has kind of been Brandon Aiyuk because of what he's done and what he's said. Instagram stories, tweets, posting on his community tab, on his YouTube channel, in tweet form. And so Aiyuk has brought this on himself. Aiyuk has stirred the pot. He's caused some of this drama, and he has caused us, people like us, to talk about something like this. So hopefully the Niners can just get over this. Aiyuk can get over this. I can't imagine being unhappy when I got $30 million per year and $76 million in guaranteed money. Hopefully Aiyuk can mature a little bit. What stood out to me about what Garofalo said is that Aiyuk and the Niners on a good page. They need to get him healthy. Okay, we understand that, right? That's all good. But then they need to keep him focused. Why does Brandon Aiyuk need to stay focused? You're, when healthy, a top 10 wide receiver. You got compensated. The Niners gave you all of this cash. But there have been some immaturity concerns with Aiyuk, both with what he's done on social media. But you think back to his rookie year, Larry, you were around the team. There were some rumblings that the Niners weren't all that happy with Aiyuk and how he carried himself during his rookie year. Remember year 2 in 2021? He started the year in Kyle Shanahan's quote-unquote doghouse. But then once he got past that, he really locked in. He was excellent in 2021. He was even better in 2022. Then he was the first team All-Pro in 2023. So now that you got paid and the Niners are really relying on you, I hope that Brandon Aiyuk can turn back the clock to 2023. He can get healthy and he can just stop with this immaturity here, because when he's locked in, man, he is one of the top wide receivers in the game.
Well, he was. I mean, I don't know if he still is. He was. I think his big problem was that he was more concerned about his stupid documentary than he was about his contract, than he was in getting in shape. He was not in as good a shape last year as he was the year before.
No.
In 2023, he was in amazing shape. He lit up, camp. He was amazing. He was skying for every ball. He was pulling balls off the turf. He looked like Superman out there.
Yep.
Last year, he didn't look anything close to that, and then he got hurt, and he was more concerned about, let's make my contract thing into a documentary. It's like, bro, you're a football player. Get in shape and get ready to play football. I mean, hey, you're a football player. You're not a documentarian. You're a football player. Nobody cares about your documentary. They care about you as a football player. So get ready to play football. And he didn't, and he got hurt. And now, I mean, I don't know what he is. I don't know what he's going to be, which is part of the reason why I'm so, an advocate of, if you can trade him, because I have no idea what he's going to be. All I know is he's expensive. There's still a lot of talk out of D.C. about McLaurin getting dealt.
Yeah.
I saw more reports about that. Heck, your guy from Chat Sports who covers the Commanders did a whole, McLaurin for Aiyuk trade proposal just 48 hours ago, right? Sperry?
Yeah, a couple days ago, earlier this week.
So, I mean, it's out there. I mean, people are like, oh, it's obvious Krug doesn't like Aiyuk. No, I don't like drama. And I don't like guys who seem like they put themselves before the team. And his documentary nobody cares or needs his documentary. But what we do care about is him as a football player. And I kind of look at this as in fact, I want to share the screen here because I think this is one of the big concerns that I have for the 49ers as we sit here on the 27th of June. It's this wide receiver core. Okay. In a way, they look loaded, right? You got your ones, your twos, your threes, your fours. You got wide receivers coming out your gills. You got all kinds of wide receivers. But then you look closely at this and you're like, okay, Debo's gone. Aiyuk isn't going to play probably until November. Juwan Jennings is a 7th-round pick 5 years ago who's having injury issues and is very, very physical. And you wonder how Can he stay healthy as he progresses throughout his career? You have Ricky Pearsall, who has 2 good games at the end of last year. Other than that, he has not looked good. You have Cowing, who did nothing last year. You have Watkins, who's a rookie. You have Demarcus Robinson, who was a nice player for the Rams, but he's not going to be there for the first 3 weeks. Isaiah Hodgins is just a possession guy. Isaiah Nayer might just be a track and field workout guy. Junior Bergen might just be a return guy. Russell Gage is not NFL. Tariq Owens, I don't think, is NFL. Malik Knowles is not NFL. So I don't know, man. I mean, on one hand, it looks like there's a lot of names there, but I don't know that Bergen's a receiver. I don't know that Nayer's an NFL receiver. Hodgins is really relatively slow. You got some quick guys who are young. It's just there's not a great receiver there to really hang your hat on. This is the franchise that had T.O. This is a franchise that had Jerry Rice that one time dabbled with Randy Moss, and now you don't really have much at receiver. So unless Cowing or Watkins or Nayer come out of nowhere and are just monster, this is probably not a top tier receiving core. So I kind of think that I would keep my eyes open. I don't know who's going to get dealt. I don't know if Romeo Doubs will get dealt from Green Bay. I don't know if Malachi Corley will get cut by the Jets. But if I'm the Niners, I am keeping a very, very close watch on the wide receivers around the NFL. And maybe I don't want Amari Cooper. Maybe I don't want, Gabe Davis or any of the guys that they've had a look at already. But I think it's better than 50-50. They're going to need another receiver before the cut down. What do you think?
Tyler Boyd is another player out there. And Nick Wright the other day, he said, if you look at this 49ers wide receiver room, I don't think it's top 15. I don't think he's that far off. Now, if Brandon Aiyuk was healthy, I think this is a very solid wide receiver room, because then you have Aiyuk, who is an all-pro. You have Jawan Jennings, who had nearly 1,000 yards last year. You have Ricky Pearsall, who really showed some juice. Demarcus Robinson is an excellent number 4 wide receiver. He averaged more than 16 yards per catch last year. Then you have Jacob Cowing and Jordan Watkins. But you take Aiyuk away. One, you're not sure how he's going to look coming off 3 torn ligaments inside that knee. Is he going to be a shell of himself? And when is he going to come back? And then with him out, everybody has to elevate up. Jawan Jennings becomes a number 1, probably not a number 1 on a lot of elite teams out there. Love the way that he plays. Love his impact on the Niners culture. He's one of the top run blocking wide receivers in the game, if not the best. He has a great rapport with Brock Purdy, but he's not a number 1. Let's be real. And then Ricky Pearsall, you like the ability. Last year, he showed some flashes, but also last offseason, he was dealing with a shoulder injury, a hamstring issue, and that was before he got shot. And now he's dealing with another hamstring issue. He's an unknown commodity. Demarcus Robinson now has to elevate because of the injury to Aiyuk. He did have a good connection going with Brock Purdy, so you like that, but you're not sure what you're going to get from Jacob Cowing. All of the talk is that he's in store for a big leap going from year 1 to year 2, but that's not a for sure thing. Jordan Watkins has 4.3 speed, but he's a rookie, and Kyle Shanahan notoriously is very difficult on rookies. So there are a lot of question marks on this Niners team. Defensively, you might have anywhere from 3 to 5 rookie starters. I like the talent there, but again, unknown commodities. On offense, you don't know about Christian McCaffrey. You don't know about Trent Williams and both of their injury statuses. You are unproven at the wide receiver position. So best case scenario, San Francisco can have a really good team. I think that they can be a playoff team. But going into training camp, going into 2025, there are definitely a lot of question marks on this roster. And the Niners are going to be relying on a lot of players taking big leaps on both sides of the ball.
I'll just say this. I'll be on the lookout for any dynamic receiver that shakes free this summer, either because of his contract or because of the roster cut down, or if there's a dynamic receiver that's available that's not going to cost you a first round draft choice or just some ridiculous contract. If I'm the Niners, I'm all over it, because I think they need one more receiver before I feel good about this year ahead. I think one more receiver on offense, maybe one more defensive lineman on defense. Okay, so let's hit this other topic, because one of the other topics that I want to get to is Middlecoff went on with Cowherd, and Cowherd is basically ripping the Niners again. He's so blatant. He doesn't like the Niners. He likes Shanahan, but he doesn't like the Niners. And here he is saying that the Niners are going to miss the playoffs. Middlecoff disagrees, and we can comment.
Going to like this. Number 2 is Niners miss the playoffs. Okay, you're not going to like this. Number 2 is Niners miss the playoffs. So first of all, they lost Dre Greenlaw, Hufanga, and Deebo Samuel. They didn't really want to. Those are good players. The players they have now on offense get injured. They have a sub-500 record, Kyle does, without Christian McCaffrey. How many games do you get? They're a sprained knee on Trent Williams at left tackle from having a bad offensive line. Again, McCaffrey coming off an injured season. They were 6-11 last year. I think Seattle's got an excellent roster. That Rams defense only getting better. And I think the Arizona guy can coach. I don't know how great they are, but they're going to upset, including the Rams. They're going to get some upsets next year. Brandon Aiyuk is still recovering. Ricky Pearsall, Jawan Jennings are ones. I think the schedule helps them, but they are a key offensive injury, Christian or Trent Williams or Kittle, from being a different team.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to like this, Colin. The 49ers are making the playoffs.
Okay.
You just talked about it. Coaching, right? They have one of the best coaches in the league. Oh, yeah, they also added Robert Saleh back in the mix. To
excellent DC.
They were terrible last year in one-score games, especially in the division. They lost a close game to the Rams. They lost a close game to the Cardinals. They lost a close game to the Seattle, all in the final couple minutes of the fourth quarter. Christian McCaffrey is healthy. Kyle just said it a couple weeks ago. He's full go. Trent Williams, healthy. They have been a lot like an NBA team. They've been making these deep runs, and they just ran out of juice last year. It happens. Well, last year, they've been off since January 1st, so you get extra rest. I think Brock Purdy is going to have a big year. I think Kyle has a lot to prove, and I just think based on the schedule, I don't think it's inconceivable they get 10, 11 wins.
All right, there you go. So two guys who don't see it the same way. And then, of course, Niner fans in the chat saying John Middlecoff is solid.
I love Middlecoff. I think he's one of the top NFL podcasters out there right now.
Oh, he's good. He's good. But I mean, it's hilarious. If Middlecoff had been like, they're not making the playoffs, and Cowherd was saying, hey, they are. Probably John wouldn't get that love there. Okay, but let's talk about it. I mean, the if game, you can play that forever. If the Chiefs lose Chris Jones, guess what? Their D line's not that great. Well, yep. So what? They have Chris Jones. If you know what? I'm going to tell you right now, if the Vikings don't have Justin Jefferson or Jordan Addison, their receiving core is not as good. Well, yep. Okay, but they do have those guys. You know what I mean? So it's like we can play this. If the Chiefs didn't have Mahomes,
if the Eagles lost Saquon Barkley, that's a huge loss.
If there's no Saquon Barkley, no A.J. Brown, no Dallas Goedert, and Lane Johnson's out for the year, the Eagles are not going to – what do we do? What are we talking about? It's like we can play this game forever. And it's just – if they're hurt now, we can discuss it. But the would-be injury predictions – I mean, come on, man. What is that? I mean, it just sounds like you're wishing for doom and gloom. So I would say this. I think the 49ers are a lock to win 9 or 10 games. I would say they're for sure, if things go right, going to win 11 or 12 games. And I give them a shot at 13 or 14 wins if things really break right. I think Brock Purdy is going to play very, very well. And I don't think that they're, here's the other thing is, there's so much talk about CMC. Yeah, CMC. I think the Niners need to use CMC less. I think they need to use Guerendo more, turn CMC from, wow, you're a solo artist to you're a combo platter with Guerendo. I would much rather, to me, what will be the positive story of this year is if we get to, let's say, the midpoint in the year and we're talking about the combo of CMC and Guerendo. To me,
Yeah.
if you want to say what will make the Niners like really, really dangerous, if we get to like Halloween and the national story is CMC and Garendo are an amazing combo.
Yeah. So let's just like dissect both what Cowherd and Middlecoff said. And it's funny because Cowherd's a Pacific Northwest guy. He grew up as a Seahawks fan, and Middlecoff is from the Bay Area. He grew up a Niner fan and was on the radio in the San Francisco area, and then did that podcast with Guy Haberman for a long time. So he has some Niner ties, and he's been around the building a lot. I think that Cowherd started off with some casual talk, right? Oh, Dre Greenlaw's gone. Charvarius Ward is gone. Talanoa Hufanga, he also signed with the Broncos. He got paid. Aaron Banks is gone. Deebo Samuel, he got traded to the Commanders. Outside of Aaron Banks, a lot of those players were hurt last year, and they barely played. In the case of Deebo, he just wasn't the same impactful player. He looked lost mentally, didn't have confidence, looked slow and out of shape. And so it's not like the Niners lost a bunch of guys who either were high-level players last year and started every game. A lot of the players who have moved on, Mooney Ward included, they missed a lot of time, they were hurt, or they didn't play well. And so I don't think the Niners are going to be crushed with having to replace those players. In the draft, they addressed the defensive side of the ball. Are they going to be younger on defense, more inexperienced? No doubt about it. But I also think that they upgraded on defense if these rookies pan out. I think they're bigger, faster, stronger, more physical, more athletic on the defensive side of the ball. And the addition of Robert Saleh is one of the biggest additions for any team in the NFL this offseason. I'm talking free agency, draft, trades, and coaching hirings. As for Trent Williams and Christian McCaffrey, them getting hurt, would it hurt the Niners? No doubt about it, especially Trent Williams. If he goes down, who's going to be the left tackle? Austin Pleasance, who I know had a good spring, Andre Dillard. That's a question mark there. And he's one of the players on this Niners team they can most ill afford to lose. Christian McCaffrey, if he got hurt, I like the potential of Isaac Garendo. You took Jordan James in the 5th round. Kyle Shanahan's always been able to make it work, regardless of which running back is back there. This offense has always been very productive in being one of the top rushing offenses in the NFL. And are those players older, injury prone? Yeah, but they're healthy right now. Cowherd also talked about the division. This division is wide open. I know the Rams are the only team in the playoffs last year that gave the Eagles a fight, and I think that they're a Super Bowl contender going into this year. They're not unbeatable. If the Niners can stay healthy, I think that San Francisco is right there with Los Angeles. Middlecoff made a good point. Saleh added to the coaching staff. Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh, Brant Boyer. You'd be hard-pressed to find a better offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, special teams coach across the entire NFL. This could be one of the most well-coached teams in the league. That matters. And the Niners last year looked tired. They were fatigued. They were tapped out. They looked worn out. But they've been off since January 1st. They've had a whole off season to get recharged. All of the talk out of the building is that there's that renewed sense of energy and the Niners are hungry. I think that matters. They've made it to 4 NFC titles and 2 Super Bowls in 6 years. That's a lot of football with shorter off seasons with an older team. Now that they've had a full off season, I think that mentally that's going to help them. Physically, it's going to help them. They were the number 2 most injured offense in the NFL last year. I don't think that injury misfortune hurts them again. And despite them being the 2nd most injured offense in the NFL last year, they were the 4th total offense in the NFL. And I do think that Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan have a lot to prove. So this easy schedule matters. There's some cupcake games on there. I think the Niners can reverse that record and go from 6-11 to 11-6. I disagree with Cowherd.
No, I mean, first of all, anybody who covered the 49ers last year, they just ran into too much adversity. The offseason was too short. The losing the 2nd Super Bowl to the Chiefs was an emotional thing. Heck, you heard Trent Williams say how emotional it was for him. So I think they were fatigued. They had the shortened off season. Then they had the rough schedule. Then they had tragedies and injuries, and their biggest rest disadvantage was the game they had to win, the home game in the second half of the year against the Seahawks, and they just ran into a wall at the end. I mean, they just absolutely were dog tired, and it just caught up with them. And if you play more games than everybody else, it's gonna catch up with you eventually. It did. Now they hit the reset. I mean, let's take a look quickly at their depth chart, because I mean, this to me is where all the answers lie. If you look at this 49ers team, let's just go quickly top to bottom. Quarterback, Purdy, Mac Jones, Mordecai, 1, 2, 3. Rourke is going to redshirt. That's a pretty good quarterback position. Running back, Christian McCaffrey and Juszczyk with Garendo, Jordan James, Patrick Taylor, Corey Kiner, Izzy Abinaconda. I think that's a pretty good running back group. I got no problems with that running back group. And I'm very, very hard grader when it comes to personnel. I got no problem with that being the running back group. Tight ends, you got Kittle, you got a blocking tight end in Luke Farrell. I really like Pline quite a bit. The rest of these guys, I think, are just guys. You could use probably another tight end, but you know what? You got one of the best tight ends at the top of the depth chart, so you're looking pretty good there. Offensive line. I would love it if they had a blue chip offensive tackle at right tackle, and McKivitz was more of a backup, like the sixth O lineman. So they're definitely an lineman short at tackle, but I think the depth in the interior is better than it was a year ago. And then receiving wise, I already said I think they're a receiver short. So I offensively I would say maybe an offensive lineman short and a receiver short. Defensive-wise, I like the linebacking core. Winters, Warner, Martin, Bethune, Gifford. I think that's a decent linebacking core. The defensive line's a little bit of a projection, but I like C.J. West for sure. I like Bryce Huff. In the secondary, I think they've got 3 good corners. The corner depth is a concern. I kind of like what I've seen at safety from Richie Grant and Jason Pinnock. And those guys are really not the starters, right? Malik Mustafa and Jair Brown probably are going to be the starters eventually. So, I mean, special teams was horrible last year, but I think it's been upgraded. I don't see the deficiency in the roster that believe me, if I did, I mean, would I like to add another defensive lineman? Would I like to add another corner? Would I like to add another receiver? Yeah. But I think I could probably say that about almost any team in football. I'd like to add a player or two. So I think the Niners roster is pretty good. And I would agree with Middlecoff. I think they're a playoff team for sure. I think they're a 10-win team for sure. Okay. Give me what you think. Let's hit a couple last things before we get out of here.
Yeah.
What's the big, there's always like a story that's a big story that is kind of beneath the radar or beneath the surface. Do you see a big story beneath the surface with the 49ers in 2025? Because I do see one. I've kind of already hinted at it, but do you see a big story with the Niners?
I think that Brant Boyer can really help a special teams unit that has been god-awful the last few years, and it's cost the Niners a lot of games. What's interesting last year is that the Niners, I think, defensively were top 5 in yards allowed, but they were bottom tier in points per game allowed, awful on third downs and in the red zone. You know what a big reason for that was? Opposing offenses had short fields. And so Brant Boyer, I think, is going to change the special teams mentality. They have addressed the personnel with their special teams coverage units in free agency and in the draft. And I just think better personnel and better coaching is really going to help there. Of course, the big question mark is Jake Moody, and that can be included in this. How does he look? And if you have kicker problems and you can't kick and you can't shake kicker problems, it can cost you a bunch of games. And that can be the difference in a razor-thin league where the margins are so small in you making the playoffs and you not making the playoffs. So I think coverage-wise, punting the ball, the Niners are going to be better on special teams. They really need Jake Moody to get it together. And if he can, this can go from being one of the worst special teams units over the last few years and the worst in 2024 to a top 10, top 15 unit. And even if you're in the middle of the pack it's greatly going to benefit this football team. So I think that is something that not a lot of people are talking about. I just always value the third phase of the game. Bill Walsh did, Bill Belichick did and does. Kyle Shanahan hasn't. He got really testy when he was pressed about that after the year. And he said, we do prioritize special teams. Well, what did they go out and do? They signed a bunch of special teams players. Luke Gifford, Saron Neal, Chaz Surratt. The list goes on and on and on. A lot of their draft picks have experience playing special teams too. And so I think that third phase of the game is going to be greatly improved, and that's really going to help the Niners.
I think that's a great one, by the way, because the Niners were like really, really, really bad on special teams. I mean,
last in like EPA and DVOA, if not last, they were bottom 3.
Really bad, really bad. Okay, I got another one that's kind of along that same lines. Another area where the Niners were really, really bad in 2024 was wide receiver separation. And Brock Purdy threw more picks because he threw more 50-50 balls, because guys couldn't get separation, because Debo was slow as molasses, and they just couldn't get any separation. I think that's the theme this year that's going to be different. I really do. I think between Demarcus Robinson, who has shown that he knows how to free himself open down the field, Jordan Watkins, who runs in the 4-3s, Jacob Cowing, who runs in the 4-3s, another year of Ricky Pearsall, maybe even the addition of Nair. I love what I see from Garendo, and I just think that between Watkins and Garendo and Cowing, I think Brock Purdy's going to throw to open guys this year. I think you're going to see more separation. I think Brock's accuracy is still going to be what it was. And you're going to see a different looking offense where he's got guys that are open because they can get separation and he can hit them. So I kind of think that we're going to talk about Purdy because it's going to be Purdy. Look at Purdy's numbers. But it's really going to be, look at Demarcus Robinson. Look at Jordan Watkins. Look at Jacob Cowing. Look at Isaac Garendo. Look at George Kittle in the pattern more because of the presence of Luke Farrell. George Kittle was in the pattern like 11% of the time, 13% of the time a couple years ago when he had Charlie Warner. Last year, he was in the pattern like 7% of the time. They want to get him out and make him one of the 5 eligibles, and you can only do that by having Luke Farrell in there from time to time and 12 personnel blocking on the line of scrimmage. So I think Kittle in the pattern, Garendo, out of the backfield being utilized more, Watkins, Robinson, and Cowing. I think the Niners are going to get that separation at wide receiver. I think Purdy's it's going to look different, but I think they're going to be a better passing attack because they have that wide receiver separation, which is something they just didn't have for good chunks of last year. So that's the area that I see them getting much, much better. Okay, give me a camp battle that you can't wait to watch this summer.
Jake Moody and Greg Joseph. I think it's a really good one.
Yeah. Who do you like?
I'm going to go with Moody. I don't have a lot of confidence saying that, but Greg Joseph hasn't been that good either throughout his career. He's been really shaky recently, especially on deep kicks. So Jake Moody and let's just say whoever they bring in for kicker competition, I would frankly look at Anders Carlson. He had some success with the Niners, and he was under Brant Boyer last year. He's younger, has a bigger leg. Nick Folk is still out there. He's been one of the most efficient kickers in football the last couple of years. So the kicker competition, I think, is a really good one. Who starts opposite and next to Fred Warner? You have D. Winters and Nick Martin leading the charge there, but could you get an upset with Tatum Bethune maybe being there? I'm not sure he can play outside backer because I don't know if he's fast enough, but you really don't know who's going to start with Fred Warner at the other 2 linebacker spots. And then can the 3 rookies start along the defensive line? Mykel Williams, CJ West, Alfred Collins, who hasn't signed his contract and hasn't seen the field. But I think they have an opportunity to start with Nick Bosa up front. Left guard is another really good one because it's going to be Ben Barch, Spencer Burford. Is it going to be Connor Colby, the 7th-round pick out of Iowa? So those are kind of the positional battles immediately that come to mind for me.
I'll tell you the one that I can't wait to see is Tanner Mordecai against Mac Jones. Now, it shouldn't be a battle, right? Mac Jones was signed to be the number 2 quarterback. He's making $5 million guaranteed. But that's what makes this all so juicy, is that Mordecai knows the offense better, and it's a complicated offense. And if you don't believe me, look at Matt Ryan year 1 to year 2. Look at Jimmy Garoppolo year 1 to year 2 in this Kyle Shanahan offense. Even Brock Purdy, I think, was better after he got his feet wet. It's a very complicated offense to learn, and Mordecai knows it, and Jones is learning it. And I think there's a very good chance that Tanner Mordecai outplays Mac Jones. And if that's the case, I think Mac Jones is not going to be on the roster. Because if Tanner Mordecai literally outplayed, first of all, Mac Jones will be given every opportunity to win that battle. If it's even, he'll go to Jones. But I don't know that it's going to be even. I think Mordecai is going to, I think he's going to outplay him. I think he's going to outplay him in camp. I think he's going to outplay him in the preseason. And I think the 49ers are going to be looking at Brock Purdy as the 1, Mordecai as the 2, and then they're going to trade or cut Mac Jones at the end of camp because they're not going to go with a $5 million third-string quarterback. The same way they didn't want to go with a $9 million Trey Lance as number 3. They don't want to go with a $5 million Mac Jones. And I think it's going to be clear that Mordecai beats him out. And so I'll predict Mordecai beats him out, and that they wind up flipping Mac Jones to a Colts or somebody like that for a day 3 pick. And I think they'll have a third quarterback on the roster that's not there right now. So it won't be Rourke. Rourke will be rehabbing. So he's, maybe it'll be Anthony Richardson. Maybe it will be, who knows? I mean, it could be DTR, who gets cut in Cleveland, or where's DTR now? DTR is
with Philly.
He
was in that Kenny Pickett trade.
He could McCord and McKee could easily beat out DTR, and DTR could wind up being the Niners' third string quarterback. I know right now everybody thinks it's a lock that Mac Jones is number 2, but he is not going to be on this team if he's not number 2. Would you agree with that?
Well, yeah, they gave him a 2-year deal worth $5+ million. And you think about what happened last year. They signed Mordecai as a UDFA, but Brock Purdy, Brandon Allen, and Joshua Dobbs got all of the snaps in the preseason. We barely saw anything from Mordecai. The only thing that we saw from Mordecai was when Kev was able to put that sizzle reel together of some of the plays that he made, and it was like a grand total of 3 of them. So he can run 4.4, has a pretty good arm. He's a little bit small, but that athleticism is really intriguing. The arm strength is intriguing, and I thought he did some good things at the college level. He played for 2-3 programs while in college, but he did some nice things.
So, that would be my camp thing that I'm looking for. Okay, 2 last ones. Your hottest 49er take for 2025. I was looking at on Twitter, you have Purdy finishing top 5 in the MVP voting this year. Would you say that is your hottest Niner take of 2025?
I put that down because I think he rebounds. I think he performs better. I think some health continuity can really assist him. I think Kyle Shanahan will have a better year. I know Purdy was top 5 in MVP voting 2 years ago, but with the pressure of the contract and with some uncertainty at some of the weapons, I think that's a pretty good take that Purdy can rebound from last year and finish top 5 in MVP voting. I think another good one is that Michael Williams has 8 to 10 sacks as a rookie. I think that's another one that I kind of had brewing in my brain.
I like that. That would be great. That would go a great distance to making that a great pick. I'm going to go with Isaac Guerendo becomes a star.
Okay.
I really think that Isaac Guerendo, like if you say the name Isaac Guerendo right now, Niner fans know who he is. But would Eagle fans know who he is? Probably not. Would Cowboy fans know who he is? Would Seahawk? I mean, I think he's kind of a relative unknown in the minds of the casual NFL fans outside the market. And I would say by halfway through this year, he is a household name for NFL fans. He's a fantasy player of note. And I think he we're talking by the middle of the year about the two-headed combo of CMC and Guerrero. I think Guerrero, what I've seen on the practice field, if he just continues to do that, he's going to be a great player. So
Yeah.
I would say Guerendo's bust out year. They're all gonna be all the second year guys will be better in year 2, but Guerrero is the one guy that I think has star potential, and we're seeing it on the practice field. He's so big, so fast. Now he knows the offense. He can really catch the football. I think Guerendo's going to be a star. I think by halfway through the year, people know about it.
6'2", 220, ran a 4.3 in the pre-draft, man. I mean, the guy can really move for that size.
And he can catch.
Not everybody watches every single show. Some of you have heard me say this, but it's important to note. It's important to remind people and refresh people's minds. He started one college game in his entire career. And so last year, sometimes you saw him go the wrong way. He didn't hit the necessary hole. But as he got more carries, I think the game slowed down for him and he got better with more of a workload. I think the more experience that he gets, that's when you can really see some of that potential come to fruition. He is a freaky, freaky player.
So big, so fast, and he is standing out on the football field. At least he did during OTAs. One super Propa 1468 says Lenoir's a good guy. It's a nothing burger in the long run. I got to say, though, it's very easy to follow the law and avoid these situations. Yeah, I mean, hey, you know what? And I say it to my own sons, my own kids all the time. Don't compound your mistakes with law enforcement by battling with them. Yeah. They're in charge. They have the gun. Just comply. If you're ordered to do something, do it. We'll figure it out later. But if don't not comply. Don't fight the law enforcement. Comply. If they ask you to do this, do it. They tell you to lay on the ground, lay on the ground. They tell you to put your hands up, put your hands up. If they tell you to put your hands behind your back, put your hands behind your back. If they ask you for your ID, give them your ID. If they ask you, you know what I mean? Just comply. And that would be, and we'll figure the rest of it out at a later date if need be, right? If you shouldn't have had to give them the ID, if this happened or that happened, or they made some request that you didn't want to do, we'll talk about it and figure it out later. We're sitting around a table and we're calm and we don't have weapons pointed. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. I would just say, and I would say that to my nephew. I'd say that to my son, my daughter. I would say that to any young person that sought out my advice. You get in problems with the law. It's going to happen. You're going to get pulled over. They're going to ask you for your ID. Do not fight. Comply, and we'll figure it out down the road.
Totally agree.
That would be my 2 cents on that.
Well said by a veteran right there.
Yeah, seriously. And I've been pulled over like everybody has, right? And sometimes I feel like the cops had an attitude. And sometimes I feel like the guy, it's gotten personal and he's wired wrong. And so what? So what? I'm sitting here because I didn't fight with them. I'm sitting here alive because I didn't try to, I don't know. But just comply. Just comply. Comply with the orders, and things are going to go a lot smoother. One last one on the way out the door, and that is, what is your biggest, as we sit here on the 27th of June, we're 75 days away, roughly, from week 1 in the season opener. What's the Niners' biggest need? We've kind of hit a few thoughts on this already, but if you just were saying position-wise, what's their biggest need? Obviously, they need to stay healthy. But outside of health, which is a need for every football team, what do you view, when you're looking at this depth chart, their biggest need?
I think corner depth is a big need. I would look at wide receiver depth as a little bit of a need too. And previously I said safety. But with how Richie Grant and Jason Pinnock seemingly performed in the spring, with those two as your backups, with George Odom, Jair Brown, and Malik Mustafa coming along nicely from that ACL injury that He put out a very promising video last week. I'm going to axe that. So I would say linebacker, wide receiver depth for me. Offensive line is always a concern for the Niners, but they just don't really prioritize it as an organization that much.
Well, and there's nothing you can do about it right now, right? I mean, it's June 27th, so it is what it is. I'm going to go defensive tackle pass rush.
Okay.
I like Bosa, and I like the potential for Mikael Williams. I love the Bryce Huff get off. I think Yatir Gross-Matos might be good, but I'm concerned about, can they get any interior push from anybody? From Alfred Collins, from Jordan Elliott, from C.J. West, from Kevin Givens, from Evan Anderson, from Kalia Davis, to Sebastian Valdez, to heck, if they were able to get my guy Shamar Stewart. I need more pass rush inside on obvious passing downs. I think Collins is a run defender. I kind of think of C.J. West as a run defender. I think of Evan Anderson as a run defender. So who are the pass rushers? Well, maybe Givens, maybe Kalia Davis, maybe this Sebastian Valdez, maybe Jordan Elliott, maybe Yatir Gross-Matos or Sam O can play inside on some obvious passing downs. But to me, if they could find one more interior player who had good feet, who could really move, who they could use on the inside, even situationally. That's what I'm looking for. I like the outside rush. I'm obviously Hargrave wasn't the answer, but they didn't really replace Hargrave. They needed that interior rusher. They signed him. He didn't really provide it. Now he's gone, and they still need it, and they really don't have a replacement for him. So I would say if they could find somebody 290 or heavier who could play inside on some pass rushing downs and give them a little pass rush, that's what I'm looking for.
I like
We'll
it.
see. It's a hard position to fill. What do you got cooking the rest of the day?
Yeah, so I passed along that Brandon Aiyuk update from Mike Garafolo a little bit earlier today. Obviously, the story of the day, Deommodore Lenoir, we talked about it here, but plenty of great content to come off throughout the weekend. We're hitting you with videos every single day on the Niners Report, so check me out over there.
Yeah, I mean, and people asking, how come, guys like Larry and Grant and Chase are putting out videos even during the downtime. The guys who do this for real all season long and who actually make money on their channels do this all year long. So if you're not producing content in June, it's probably because you don't make money off your channel, or you don't make enough money off your channel, or you're making your money some other way. But we make our money off our channels, and thus you're going to get content all the way through the month of June, all the way into camp. So
I mean, so impressive how you're on vacation, and I see you at that house with the nice little wood backdrop. Looks like a nice little vacation home. You're grinding out content. And I think that you feel the way that I do. It's like, look, you and I get along very well. We're very good friends. We join each other every single Friday. I have mad respect for what you do. And that's just on YouTube. I mean, what you've accomplished on radio is incredible. But if you're not doing Niner videos, you're like, man, other people are kind of lapping me though. And they're doing their own content. And then my subscribers are like, well, you're not doing any videos. I'm going to watch somebody else. I always want people to tune into my channel. And I just feel the need to consistently produce high-level content. So shout out to you. You're on vacation. Our minds work very similarly. I have 2 weeks of vacation that I can use, but I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to be able to use it. And even if I am on vacay, I'll still be doing at-home types of videos. So
well, and you know what? The cool thing about it is you and I, and we exist in kind of an idea-based deal. And so whether I'm here in my studio in Northern California, or if I'm sitting on a beach in Connecticut, you're in Texas, maybe you're traveling to see a college football game. I mean, we can put out content from anywhere, and a lot of times, some of the stuff I did on vacation were some of my favorite videos I've done in the last couple of weeks. So it's really just about come up with a good idea, and we'll tape it from anywhere. Anyway, there you go. We keep it rolling. No days off. No days off. That's
Shout
going to
out
do it
Bill
for us.
Belichick. Yeah.
Thanks to Chase. Thanks to Sharp Corners, Sports Cards and Collectibles. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Thanks to LearnKey Upskill Academy. The links are in the description below. Have a great Friday, everybody. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful.